What up, y'all? You already know what it is. We are here on Burden of Purpose for another great conversation. My name is Derreck Smith. You know that our objective is to highlight the good news through video, provide career path exposure to young adults, and these great conversations are usually revolving around faith, fitness, finance, and relationships. Today, we're going to change the subject up a little bit and talk a little bit about voting, specifically because we're right around the corner from the election. And we're going to talk about voting and a little bit about the Electoral College. So with that being said, let's jump right into it. As I mentioned, none other than Michael Futrell. Good morning, sir. How are you this morning, sir?
I am spectacular. How about yourself, sir?
I can't complain. I can't complain at all. I woke up this morning, both of my feet hit the ground. I still have a job. We got a roof over my head. My entire family is safe and healthy. So, you know, I have a lot to be thankful for and not complain. You know what I mean?
Brother, you better preach that sermon.
Hey, listen. We just getting started. Nah, man, I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to join me real quick for this great conversation, brother.
Nah, man, I'm glad I could do it. I realized late last night I was double booked. I'm actually traveling with the lieutenant governor down to Richmond for the John Lewis March that's happening. So I had to pull us over here to the side of the road because this is someplace I felt like I needed to be. So
hey, well, I
don't take it lightly.
I very much appreciate it. You know, that being said, you know, we're going to dive right into the conversation, man. First and foremost, a lot of people between a wide range of age, ethnicity, background, color, you know, have not necessarily had a lot of confidence in voting and the election for a wide array of reasons. And I wanted to kind of kick the conversation off with you explaining why it's important to vote, not just in a national sense, but voting locally.
Well, yeah, no, I think that's a great question. Because the thing that everybody needs to understand is that all politics is local. I think it was Tipper Gore that said that. Because everything that happens on the local level is what's going to dictate what is actually going to happen on the national level, right? You know, that's why it always used to frustrate me. You know, I would go around and I would talk to people in my community like, hey, we need you to vote. And they'd be like, oh, well, I don't pay attention to politics. Well, my thing is politics pays attention to you. You understand? Because whatever laws that they pass, you are going to have to live by. When they raise your taxes, guess what? You have to pay that, right?
Right.
When they change boundaries, guess what? You have to live within that. And so the thing that we want to be able to do is to make sure that our voices are heard. If we can make a stance on the local level, the national level has no choice but to talk about it.
There it is.
Because as you hear them talk about kitchen table politics and those sorts of things, the question is, what is happening in your home, in your community, that our national team should be paying attention to? Because remember, the people who are making these national decisions are supposed to come from our communities anyway.
Right.
And so we want to make sure that they hear what it is that we are talking about, what impacts us. Because I'm going to tell you, when I was elected to the Virginia House of Delegates, one of the things that I realized so very often was that there were so many people who didn't understand what my community was going through, what
right.
I was talking about, that they assumed was a one-off.
Right.
Right? And they didn't understand what that meant. And so because of that, that's not what they were focused on.
Right.
And that is why it's up to us. It's up to, you know, brothers like yourself hosting conversations like this. You know, people like, you know, the Mayor of Dumfries, Derek Wood.
That's right.
You know, going at bringing everybody involved into the conversation. You know, being with the lieutenant governor, going down to Richmond, being out. You know why we went out there with the protesters?
Talk to me.
Because realized was nobody was listening to these kids.
That's right.
And so while we're out there talking to them, I tell everybody all the time, they're talking about, oh, well, these kids are tearing up stuff and doing this. When we went out there with those kids, the only thing that I heard from them as we talked to them was, yes, sir, no, sir.
Wow.
I'm telling you.
Wow.
They just want to be heard. And that's so many of us. And that's what we keep talking about. You want to fix what's happening on the national level? Pay attention to what's happening on the local level.
My man. Hey, I got a question for you. Can I get that map up? I got a question for you. So,
okay.
In 2016, the election was decided not by the popular vote, right?
Right.
And so
right.
What I'm hoping you can do for people that are paying attention to this conversation, in your own words, Mr. Futrell, explain to us what the Electoral College is.
So, and that's the thing I think that confuses a lot of people, but that also is why we run into some of the problems that we have. We keep telling people their vote counts, but Hillary Clinton won the election by more than 3 million votes and still lost.
Right.
And so the question was, how has that happened? As you mentioned, which was the Electoral College. So what happens is each state is giving a certain amount of electoral votes. What those electoral votes are representing are the total number of seats held by their U.S. senators and their congressional delegates. So when you add all of those up, that's how many they get. To put it in perspective, I see you have the map up. You see, California is the largest one. They have 55, right? Then you'll have Texas that has 38, and then you have New York and Florida, which have 29. Virginia actually hosts 13 electoral votes. So that's our congressional delegation and our senators.
Yeah.
And so in most states, just about most states, what happens is to the winner, they get all of the electoral votes, all except for, I believe it's Maine, and I forget the second one, Nebraska. That's who it is.
Okay.
Where this is actually set up to where if you win the popular vote in that state, you get 2 electoral votes. But then what they do is they split up the rest of the votes by congressional district that's won. So I can win a congressional district and get some of those electoral votes, even though I didn't win the popular vote.
Got it.
So what that meant for us in 2016 was Hillary Clinton won the popular areas where they had the largest mass concentration of people.
Right.
But what happened was President Trump ended up picking up some of these other states that were less populated. I told people, technically, both teams accomplished what they set out to do.
Right.
One team set out to win the popular vote. One team set out to win the electoral college. Problem is, only one of those things makes you president.
There it is.
And so that people ask all the time, well, why do we have that? So to understand, that was a part of what was called the Great Compromise. If you remember, the issue that they were having was the South was afraid that the North was overpopulated. And so they thought they were going to not be able to have a real role in presidential elections. So what they pushed through was the Great Compromise, is what helped create this electoral college. And that's also what many of us know about the 3/5 compromise,
where
they were allowed they were allowed to count slaves as 3/5 of a person, so that way they could balance out the numbers. So some people make the argument that the reason that you have to do that is because if you don't, what would happen is everybody would just cater to all of the large areas. So your Californias, your New Yorks, your Texas, your Florida would be where they would spend all of their time because they were just going for the popular vote. And that's why they felt like they needed the electoral college. I am not a proponent for the electoral college. I believe the will of the people should make the decisions. And especially in this day and age where we have social media and, the internet, where you can get all of the information that you would want and need. I don't think that we have to operate like that any longer. This was really done as a way to be able to try to balance some of the power out.
Yeah.
And if we've noticed, it's usually one particular demographic that ends up taking the biggest brunt of it.
Let me ask you this question, and this is a completely random question. Amongst the individuals that you are in communication with, you network with, you're traveling right now with the lieutenant governor, has there been discussion about how we can change that electoral college at all?
Well, there's always been discussions about it. I'll tell you, it heated up. Most people will remember that it really got hot actually back in 2000, right?
Yep.
So to back you up, after the Al Gore, George Bush debacle, where George Bush actually lost the popular vote. So to be clear, it's actually happened 4 other times outside of 2016. So it's 1824, 1876, 1888, and 2000.
Yeah.
And then, of course, 2016 was the 5th time. There had been conversation about it. Naturally, with a lot of the things that are going on in politics, there are people who are like, well, what happens if you get a rogue elector who decides to, vote however they want to vote? And to be clear, that's happened multiple times.
Right.
It just usually doesn't impact the actual election. It's what they call, there's a name for it, the faithless electors is what they call them. Right? So you were entrusted to cast that ballot and you didn't. And so there's been a lot of talk about, how do we start to make some of these changes? As you know, anytime it would take a constitutional amendment, anytime that you start talking about adjusting the Constitution in that way, we start getting running into a lot of issues. In 2000, when they were really pushing for it after the Al Gore, George Bush, what ended up happening is it died down because the next 2 elections, they both won the popular vote and the electoral college. So, it didn't end up being a target of an issue.
Yeah.
But I do think now with this group that we've started to move forward with, you will be able to see more people starting to bring that narrative to the table.
Got it. So, with the Electoral College being selected, right? Again, that ties back to voting locally because these are the individuals that are representing us locally. So again, we really appreciate you kind of shedding some light on the Electoral College and reinforcing the necessity of voting locally, especially this November. Any last remarks, words of encouragement, motivation that you want to share with anybody catching the conversation today?
Yeah, I just want to encourage you. Like I told you, I hear people say all the time, well, I don't pay attention or my vote doesn't count. Well, in that case, do it for me as a favor and go vote. How about that? When you see the things, especially that are impacting our community, you look at COVID-19, which is disproportionately impacting Black and brown people across the world. You look at the unemployment rates, as we always say, especially when it comes to Black America. If America catches a cold, Black America catches the flu. Right? And so as we start looking at the things that are impacting our communities, and honestly, it's widespread. I mean, at this point, we should all be on the same page. If you want to be able to see change, what has to happen is you have to make sure that your voice is heard. Anybody that's ever heard me speak heard me say, if you don't have a seat at the table, that means you're on the menu. Well, it is time for us to make sure that we have that seat, that we dictate what's on that menu. There are so many things that are in front of us. Pay attention. We got the constitutional amendments that are on the ballot.
Yep.
All of these things are important. I'm not going to tell you which way to vote. People already have seen that, I support constitutional amendment number 1. But guess what? There's another segment of the population that doesn't. I don't care which way you vote. I want you to vote.
There it is.
Pay attention to what's going on and stay involved.
There it is. Michael, always a pleasure and a privilege, sir. Listen, you and Lieutenant Governor, please be safe on that road. And we'll look forward to seeing you real soon, brother.
All right, sounds good.
Take care.
Take care. Be blessed.
I'm really glad that you all were able to participate in today's great conversation. One thing's for sure as we head into this election, Trump nor Biden are going to fix or keep America great. People are. And now that many of us have had our children return to school, my suggestion is read to your kids. Read to any kid for that matter. Show them how to find the joy in work. Teach them what respect and kindness looks like. No politician is ever going to do that. It's not the government's job to teach people how to be happy. On that note, until next time, Burden and Purpose, great conversation. It only goes up from here. Take care.